There's so much information out there, and dealers every day are just inundated with tasks and processes and portals and logins. So sometimes this can kind of fall down a bit. It doesn't matter what side of the store you're thinking of. It's like, how can I get the customer to come back? That's number one. And, whether it's through advertising, products, promotions, specials, whatever it is, you will get percentages of clients back. This is blowing them all away in terms of actual activation of the client. Whether it's a Ferrari, a Ford, or you're selling French fries, first and foremost, it's the people. It's your people, the people that are on the front lines. The product is agnostic. If you've got great people in the right place talking to your clients, and empowering them to help them, you're going to keep them.
Welcome to Retention Roadmap, navigating service success for new car dealerships. I'm your host, Bill Springer. Today's podcast is sponsored by DriveSure. DriveSure helps new car dealerships remain the go-to provider for maintenance, tires, and repairs. For information on how DriveSure can help your dealership, go to drivesure.com/dealership solutions. My guest today is Adam Mancuso, CEO of Automotive Data Analytics. Adam brings a unique perspective to the industry, having grown up in a family with nearly 100 years in the car business, and until selling the dealership last year, serving as Chief Operating Officer of Ferrari Lake Forest in suburban Chicago. Today, he's focused on helping dealerships unlock one of the most underutilized opportunities in fixed operations, recall campaigns. We're going to talk about how recalls can drive service traffic, improve customer retention, and create long-term value when executed effectively. So, Adam, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's just jump right in, Adam. How much recall opportunity do you think the average dealership is missing today?
It's quite significant, actually. I mean, first of all, is the process. The typical process has been just kind of, let's see what comes in. If there's something that's more serious, sometimes there's reach out. I mean, the manufacturers are reaching out as well, but really on the dealer basis, on an operational basis, it's much more limited to kind of almost like what's coming through the door at the moment. What we've seen is the dealers that are really focused not only on fixed operations, but utilizing recall have seen tremendous success in getting the clients to come back to the dealer. And that's what's been really fabulous for me, is to see a way to have clients re-engage with the dealer. It's really a non-confrontational way that the client needs something. Manufacturer is going to support it and pay for it. And it gives the dealer an opportunity to really win back the client if they're not a current client, or, maybe someone's never been in the store.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can't think of another, there may be, but I can't think of another business or situation where there is such a great opportunity to re-engage with a customer who maybe has never been in the store before, or maybe has been in the store in the past, but maybe it's a year or 2 years or longer since they've been in. And I think it's just really a great way to re-engage with a customer to get them thinking about coming back to the dealership again. Do you have any information or any data, Adam, in terms of those customers who come in on a recall campaign? What percentage of them do re-engage with the dealership and start coming back for scheduled maintenance and that type of thing?
Yeah, that's really interesting too. And as a dealer, I was always very data focused. I wanted to have information that I could see and understand, what was going on and how to react. What our clients like, don't like, things of that nature. And what we're seeing is twofold. One, the clients are coming back and they're re-engaging with the dealer, not only from a recall perspective, but a customer pay perspective. The dealer has the opportunity then to have that conversation. And what we're also seeing, which is super cool, is on a conquest perspective, client coming back, really becoming a customer, and we're seeing things on the front end of the business happen as well, which is not surprising. Services is really where you keep your client, retain your customer. But we're seeing new customers come in through utilizing this information and buying cars. So that's fabulous to see.
Yeah, for sure. I think just kind of keeping it like a 20,000 foot perspective at this point, Adam, what do you see as the differences between dealerships that do a great job at executing on recalls versus an average one versus a less than average one?
Yeah.
What are the differences kind of between those three buckets?
So I think, there's so much static out in just there's so many products and you know it's really hard for a dealer to wrap their brain around what are the best tools to use.
Yeah.
And what I've always found and what I'm really excited is that we're empowering the dealer. So we see things that dealers do that really execute well, and it's that reach out component. It's really picking up the phone. And we encourage the dealer to do that. We want to meet the dealer where they're at to support and augment what they're already doing because they know what they're doing. So the really high successful dealers are the ones that have a process, and it really comes down to the phone. Text and email is fine. It's good for a reminder. But phone call is where we really see that's the 80-20 rule. 80% is being driven by the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So the dealer and it doesn't. You don't have to have a sophisticated BDC. Some dealers do. Awesome. We can help support and have other resources. We call it overflow BDC that a dealer can use. So if you're a single point store or multi-channel, there's tools to use that help on that reach out component. And that's driving the information back to the dealer where the dealer can do what they do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that this, in your experience, do you feel that this is primarily a data problem, an execution problem, or a combination of both?
I think it's a combination really of both. I think the data is on the top end. That's always a problem. The DMS data, regardless of brand, manufacturer, location, one store, multiple stores, there's always an error rate in it.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, the OEM information has an error rate as well.
Sure.
It's very frustrating. And so we help with that out of the gate. We give clear, pure data back to the dealer for them to do what they do. And that makes everyone's day better, more efficient, more effective. I've seen it, whether it's service writers making a call or a BDC and you're calling all these people that don't own the car,
Yeah.
or, it's just bad outreach for a dealer,
Sure.
Whether they own your car or not, especially if they don't, no one wants to be called or, it's just like, yeah, they don't know what they're doing. So we help solve for that. Then it's really kind of putting a process around it, saying, hey, this is something we're going to engage and actively engage and look at it, see where the opportunities are. And that combination has been highly successful.
Yeah, I can see that. When you look at that recall traffic, would you say that recall traffic is more valuable than regular maintenance traffic because it's of its ability to re-engage that customer?
Yeah, I think it really is.
Yeah.
And really, it's kind of the overall engagement way as well. It's the client needs this, the car needs it, the client needs it, and the manufacturer supporting it. So you really have a great way, conversation point with the client at that point. Plus, I've never seen a higher way to engage and re-engage clients than this. I mean, and that's something that and it doesn't matter what side of the store you're thinking of. It's like, how can I get the customer to come back? That's number one. And, whether it's through advertising, products, promotions, specials, whatever it is, you will get percentages of clients back. This is blowing them all away in terms of actual activation of the client.
Yep. And when you're successful in terms of getting that customer to come back into your dealership for the execution of that recall campaign, I'm asking this both as your kind of total experience as both the CEO in your current role, as well as your former role in a dealership. How should that customer be treated any differently while they're in with a recall campaign versus any other customer? Did they get more of the white glove treatment, or is there anything in particular that should be done with that particular customer while they're in for that recall campaign?
That's a really great question, and I think that kind of delineates part of the way that we look at the overall DMS and the VINs and the client base that are in there.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a great visualization tool, which for me is as a former dealer to look at. I've never seen a way to visualize our whole database, and one of the first things we do is we break it down how the dealer wants, but typically 12 to 13 month active client versus lost client. And I think that when you look at maybe some of the lost clients that come back, you should at least have a question, or maybe a little bit more re-engagement to see, Was there a reason they weren't coming back? Why are they back now? It's the opportunity for the dealer to really show why they're the best there. Plus, the auto warranty. That's another huge component. Franchise dealers are the only authorized ones to do this sort of work. And we, all know the precipitous drop off of auto warranty out of dealer network.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
So this is an opportunity to show and showcase the dealer network, the franchise OEM authorized dealer body, to show why, we are what we are, how we're engaged not only with you as a customer, but the communities that almost all dealers are. So it gives that standpoint to really win back that client. So I don't think it needs to go overboard, but I think there's definitely a component of it, Bill.
Yeah. When you look at recall execution within the dealership, what are some of the more common failures that you see that create problems not only for the customer but internally at the dealership as well?
Yeah. Well, I think the number one biggest one, and this is another item we always touch with any dealers we're working with, is you don't want to create an artificial problem. And really, by what I mean by that is, if you reach out and get a hold of that customer, say, hey, we got this recall work to do, we'd love to have you back. Great, and there's no parts availability.
Yeah.
Or the solution's not there. Now you've created an issue for yourself, a potential issue for the OEM, and that's the last thing we want. So we work very closely with everyone in the store, not only just from the service side, but parts, marketing, make sure we're all aligned. And it's a simple process. It's not overly complicated. Everyone can get their brains around it quick. And then, again, we're empowering the dealer to execute when they need to. So to be sure that they have everything that they need, that reach out. And that's probably the biggest one, Bill.
Yeah, that makes sense. Brings up another question, and I'm curious about, do you have any idea, Adam, in terms of for recalls overall, what percentage of them today do require, a part to be in stock versus, say, an update to the vehicle software?
It's, the percentages are, we're seeing more of the software come in, but even with that, and, I stress this as well, it's not foolproof. And we saw an example of that with Jeep. I believe it was the Wrangler 4xe, software went out and it wasn't right. And that's where I always see, the value in the dealers is exceedingly high. The cars really need to be there to have the highest level of service work done. So I think, the software is there. Yes, we'll see more software updates coming through and things like that, but it's not going to replace what the dealers are doing.
Gotcha. Just going back on the data problem, how much of frustration around recalls is a data problem, and how has that improved over the years with respect to the ability to pull in data from different sources?
I think it's gotten better, but that's really where, I use the word static. There's so much information out there, and dealers every day are just inundated with tasks and processes and portals and logins, so sometimes this can kind of fall down a bit. And it's then, even on the DMS side, it's, the VINs you get so many clients in there, it becomes a laborious task. You got to update every one. You could have 10, 30, 40,000 clients in there, so those things kind of drop down to the priorities of what's going on today in the lane, what's up with, in the shop, what do our clients need today? So some of the tomorrow stuff gets pushed out, and that's where the problem can get a little bit larger. So it's kind of a constant that I've always found, and even now through stores whenever we talk to them. So it just, to me, it's really fun to go back to a dealer and say, hey, we're going to help with this pain point and augment what you're doing and assist that.
Yep.
Because it's one of those items that's highly important, but it kind of falls down the wayside sometimes, and understandably so.
Yeah, for sure. When you look at the data that comes through on recalls that do get executed within the dealership, do you have any sense as to, what the real revenue opportunity is around recalls and particularly around customer pay? We all know, obviously, when a customer comes in for a recall campaign, it doesn't cost them anything. But what do you see kind of in general, if it is possible to generalize, around, what is typically the opportunity there for customer pay revenue during that recall visit?
I think it's very high. We're seeing on average, say a 20 to 30%, rate of customer pay work on the line items. And I go back onto the out of warranty. The out of warranty cars are all customer pay, and those, that's the huge opportunity for the dealer to show why, they are what they are. No, we're not the most expensive. We've got the right parts. They're not going to break. And that's all going to be customer pay work. And you're not going to win them all, but you can have the conversation. So I go back to a bit on the dealer process as well. And it's that fine line where you don't want to come in and just inundate the client out of the gate, try to sell them everything, because that's what they're expecting. So it needs to be done in a respectful way, but the opportunity is there. There are things that the cars need, that dealers have, and the programs and things they just might not know.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up a good point there in that recalls are presumably they're not always on 1, 2, 3-year-old vehicles. They can be on
Right.
vehicles that are 3 plus 4 years
Yes.
or more. So out of warranty vehicles, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. And it's a fabulous opportunity for the dealer networks, the OEM dealer networks, to showcase themselves.
Yeah.
Because those are the clients that are typically probably 70-80% of them outside of the network.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's interesting. We did an analysis recently that I highlighted in my NADA workshop I did earlier this year. We looked at revenue, kind of the revenue curve for the typical parts and service department of what model years contribute the highest proportion of overall revenue to the parts and service department. And it's a nice normal distribution curve right around 4, 5, 6-year-old vehicles. 5, 6-year-old vehicles
Yeah.
really are the sweet spot there.
Yeah.
And even though the retention in general across the board is not great for a 6-year-old vehicle, boy, it does create a lot of opportunity for revenue for the dealership for sure. I mean, it creates the largest proportion of revenue for the
Yeah.
dealership, which can be surprising for a lot of people.
And I think that, that's really the opportunity where all these dealers are, they can use their entrepreneurial self and say, hey, how can we keep them here?
Yeah.
And there's levers that you can use to do that.
Yep.
So it allows that opportunity, if that client is gone, to at least they're going to come back.
Yeah.
And you've got that opportunity to have that conversation or promotion or, why they should stay here. And that's a compelling case.
Yep, for sure. Well, before we let you go, Adam, I really want to ask you about both your family background as well as your personal experience in your family's business, and that the Mancuso name has been in the dealership world for 100 years, correct?
Yeah.
And give us a little thumbnail about your family's history, if you would.
Yeah. So we came over. Well, my great grandparents came over from Italy in the late 1800s, and they settled up in upstate New York in the 20s. Then the Italian immigrants were doing lawn care maintenance and hardware. My great grandfather had a hardware store in Batavia, New York. And he, in the 1923, guy from General Motors stopped by and said, "Hey, you want a GM franchise?" I said, "Why not?" So they signed up in 23, and we were a Chevy for a very long time. My grandfather came to the Chicago area here in the 50s and opened up a Chevy store called Mancuso Chevrolet.
Uh-huh.
Where my father was, and my father loved motorsports and got very involved with General Motors motorsports and Corvette racing and IMSA, and had these awesome cars in the 70s. And then we got really in the high end of the business. My father left and opened up what's called Lake Forest Sports Cars, and then became Ferrari Lake Forest with some other brands. And it's been a really unique journey. And I've had the great fortune to be around cars since I was born. I love it.
That's great.
On this new journey it's been awesome too, because I love cars, I love dealers, and I love our clients.
Yeah.
And to marry all those things together is just a wonderful opportunity.
That's fantastic. So how many Ferrari dealerships are there in the US?
There are now probably close to 40.
Okay. And they probably sell on average each one maybe 15, 20 cars a year? I don't know.
Yeah, it's grown.
Has it?
So,
Okay.
in the early 2000s, that's kind of where it was, maybe a little bit more. But the product lines expand, the volumes, even though they're small, have expanded.
Sure.
So, it's more significant today than it was.
Yeah.
It could be 40 plus.
Yeah.
And then, the pre-owned opportunity as
Yeah.
well.
Sure.
And the service, it's interesting, the serviceability, getting the client to come back, and whether it's a Ford or Ferrari, out of warranty, they become a little bit more price sensitive. They're starting to look a little bit more, so that's really the opportunity to recapture the client and show why they should be with the dealer franchise.
Sure. What in your experience have you found is similar, between, say, a Chevrolet dealership and a Ferrari dealership
Yep.
in terms of those
Yep.
customer expectations and that type of thing?
Yeah. Whether it's a Ferrari, a Ford, or you're selling French fries, first and foremost, it's the people.
Yeah.
Your people, the people that are on the front lines. The product is agnostic. If you've got great people in the right place talking to your clients, and empowering them to help them, you're going to keep them. And that's what I've always found is number one, the right people. And that can always be a challenge. And then it's the culture behind it, knowing they're supported, knowing the technicians are supported. And, the vast amount of dealers want to support their people. They want that right culture. They're working at that very hard every day.
Right.
And they do an exceptional job at it.
Yep. That's great. Well, Adam, thanks so much for being a guest on the podcast today. If any of our listeners would like to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do so?
So the best way is to either go to our website. You can just find it. We've shortened it a little bit, autodataanalytics.com. You can go there. My cell phone's on there. You can call me. You can email me. I'm always available. I don't have business hours, just like I was in retail. I'm around. So, would love to talk to anyone that is, and you can email me as well. It's Adam at automotivedataanalytics.io. They'll come right to me. So
super.
Really appreciate it, Bill.
Great. Thank you very much, Adam. Really appreciate you being on the podcast today.
Thanks, Bill.
You've been listening to Retention Roadmap, Navigating Service Success for New Car Dealerships. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.